The impact that The Rock has had on the WWE alongside Stone Cold is second to none. The duo's catchphrases, verbal insults, and insane matches alongside the ability to rile up a crowd is at a level we've never seen before. However, The Rock hasn't been shy in talking about his career and everything that went on behind the scenes. So just like Undertaker and Steve Austin, I'll be sharing some of the most insane stories that you may have not heard of, kicking things off with the origins of his name within WWE. So prior to being called the Final Boss, there was a time before 2000 where he used to go by Rocky Maivia. The name was essentially a callback to both his father and grandfather, and at the time he was using it in WWE, he was a babyface that simply wasn't connecting with the audience, which made Dwayne somewhat hate the name that he was given. Everything changed after meeting the great Pat Patterson and taking his advice.
The story of The Rock is, before I do what I do now, many moons ago, I used to throw around 300-pound men for a living and get my ass kicked. And then my original wrestling name was Rocky Maivia, which was a combination of my dad's first name and my grandfather's last name, because both of them were pro wrestlers. So my name became Rocky Maivia. And when it was first pitched to me from Vince McMahon, he said, I got your name and I want it to be Rocky Maivia. What do you think? And he knows me now, and that's how I speak. I say, I hate it. I hate it. And I hated the name. I said, I hate it. And he said, okay, great. Well, that's your name.
Wow.
And I went, okay. So I embraced it and I did it. And that name did not stick. And eventually, when I became a bad guy, it got truncated down to The Rock. And a guy who was my father figure, and I've talked to you many times about him, Pat Patterson, was a mentor of mine in pro wrestling. He said, what do we call you, The Rock? He's a French guy, had a tough French accent. I said, I love it. And he goes, okay, you're The Rock.
And it seems as though his debut within the company went from bad to worse, as he shared a story on the Joe Rogan podcast about how he had a wardrobe malfunction when it came to styling his hair for his first ever match.
I said, can you give me something that's going to make my hair like nice and like go down? And she gave me like a thing that made it frizzy. Oh. And then that's what you get, by the way, just a fucked up haircut on your debut. Like, luckily, the people of New York was like, "This, we kind of like this kid. His haircut is really fucked up."
You look like Kid and Play.
I look like the bigger version of Kid and Play. Look at this.
Look at that thing.
Fuck.
That's a solid foot above your head.
That's awful. Right, this time the referee's like, hey, get the fuck out of the ring. Come on, we got a show.
But sticking on the subject of his name, ever since The Rock departed in the early 2000s, he's managed to conquer the mainstream media and Hollywood, where he's managed to bag the title of being the highest paid actor in Hollywood on 4 separate occasions. A feat that even Vince McMahon must be proud of, considering WWE own all the rights and IPs of all wrestlers within the company.
Hello, I like money.
Because whenever The Rock is advertised, he's often billed as Dwayne The Rock Johnson, and the amount of money WWE will be making off of his likeness is simply insane. However, an interview with Howard Stern back in 2004, The Rock revealed a shocking story that Vince willingly gave The Rock his IP for his name as a gesture of goodwill, which is unheard of in the entertainment industry.
So when are you going to give up the WWE and do the acting full-time? Is Vince going to let you keep the name The Rock?
I actually own it.
Oh, you do?
Oh, how'd you get that? Did you have to fight him for it?
No, you know what? Honestly, it was an easy conversation. This is how it went down. I went to him, I talked to him, and he knew, what I wanted to do after wrestling, because I've been able to accomplish a lot, which has always been great for me. It's been a media thing. Like they've been writing and putting out there Dwayne The Rock Johnson, Dwayne The Rock Johnson.
I heard Vince was making. Vince owns a piece of the movies that you're in because he owns the name The Rock and he owns you. That's what I heard.
No, I own the name The Rock.
Do you have to still wrestle?
I do not.
What would be the ramifications if you left wrestling? Could Vince take back the name The Rock?
No. I have my name. I own my name and all rights.
And you didn't have to pay for it?
I did not have to pay for it.
So moving on, while in WWE, it's hard to say which promo The Rock has cut that has been his greatest, considering there are so many that are timeless. And the great one has obliterated everyone that's tried to one-up him on the microphone. Whether it was Stone Cold, Triple H, or Chris Jericho, The Rock has spared no one within the WWE.
And even if The Rock has got to beat Kurt Angle, which means I'm gonna drink a big glass of milk, eat some chocolate chip cookies, and then maybe I'll take 3 Viagra. You ain't nothing. You ain't nothing. You ain't no superhero. Not like the Scorpion King. You're 100 pounds of nothing. 5 feet nothing.
So in his most recent run in 2024, many think the promo that he cut online was the best one yet, considering how long it was. And to be honest, the final boss made both Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins look like complete idiots. But speaking to Chris Van Vliet, The Rock revealed that his favorite promo is actually one of the very first ones that he cut after turning heel for the very first time and joining the Nation of Domination stable.
You have cut some legendary promos in your time, and I want to know for you, what is the most memorable?
I would have to say that when I first turned heel, and for non-wrestling fans, it means when I became a bad guy. At that time, The Rock was just trying to understand what the character of The Rock is, entertaining, loud, funny, not loud, whatever he could be. I remember being in the ring, and we were live, and I said, you know, I may be a lot of things, but sucks isn't one of them, and you'll soon find out.
Yes.
It was a turning point for me in terms of my career.
Well, Rocky might be is a lot of things, but sucks isn't one of them.
And in a later podcast, he would further illustrate how important it was getting those 2 minutes of TV time were to him, as it allowed him to develop his character, because the idea of quitting WWE was floating in his head. Considering this was very early on in his career, and the amount of money he was making was well far away from the millions that he's making now. He'll go on to explain that the situation was so bad that he briefly considered moving on to MMA and potentially Japan, as the amount of money they were making at the time far surpassed anything that WWE was offering. But thankfully, Vince came to his senses.
I go backstage, Vince looks at me and Pat and just says, I don't know what we did wrong, but we have to make a change. I know what that means. 2 days later, I drop the belt to somebody else. Now I'm getting beat every night, and then I get hurt. I tear my PCL, wrestling a guy named Mick Foley. Now by this time it's May. Vince says, take time off, heal your knee. I don't know what we did wrong or where we went wrong, but we got to really figure things out with you. I don't know if this is going to work out. Oof. Pride just opened up in Japan. So I was seeing all these MMA guys going over to Pride. You remember that time, right? I think you might have been with UFC at that time, right?
Yeah.
And at that time, I was making $150,000 wrestling 235 days a year. Oof. So do the math of that and how much you're making per match. We start hearing, hey, these guys over in Pride are making 250, 350, 500. And I thought then, well, fuck, I don't think I'm going to make it in WWE. People are booing me out of the arenas. I can't be myself. They're telling me to fucking smile. I don't want to fucking smile. It's not who I am. I start talking to Ken Shamrock at that time, who was wrestling with us. I run into Mark Kerr. I start talking to him. He told me a little bit about Pride. And I have this idea in my head. Well, maybe I should train to MMA and go to Pride and make money, real money. I said to Vince, hey, tonight when I go out there, could I just have 2 minutes on the microphone? And he's like, I don't know. He goes, it's live. You know, all our time's accounted for, allocated. I said, I just need 2 minutes. He goes, why? I said, I just want to be real and just tell the fans how I feel.
So while his Nation of Domination promo wasn't the most iconic one, without it, we would have never gotten the most used catchphrase in WWE. And for those that need a reminder, here it is.
Thus declaring The Rock now and forever the people's champion.
Rock, you have to understand something. Since you're the people's champion, you carry the weight of all of these people on your back.
The story behind why The Rock even refers to himself as the People's Champion is quite interesting. So as he was climbing up the ladder within WWE in the late 90s, Dwayne used the catchphrase even though he was portraying a bad guy on TV. This was simply to engage the audience more, but the inspiration behind the catchphrase is simply heartwarming. While speaking on a podcast, he explained that Muhammad Ali is how he came up with it, as he was the original sports personality that referred to himself as the People's Champion. And one day the two athletes met in person, and it's an interaction that The Rock still remembers to this day.
I started calling myself the People's Champion just to piss people off. And we were wrestling down in Louisville, Kentucky, and Ali's family came to watch. And his wife was there, family was a big group. Afterwards, they were waiting to say hello. Now, again, I'm going out there, I'm grabbing the microphone, and the People's Champ says, I'm just laying it all in. So when I come back, I say hello to the family, his wife, and I say, hey, I just want you to know, if you could let Muhammad know, I call myself the People's Champion in a way to pay homage to him, out of respect. but I'm going around the country saying it and people are shitting on me because that's what you want as a heel. And I told his wife, so if you could please tell him, if he doesn't want me to use this because I know what this meant to him, being the people's champion, I won't. And dude, she said, he told me to tell you it's yours. That was one message he told me to tell you tonight. I was like, I got emotional. It was just incredible.
And speaking of sports personality, there's no rivalry that even comes close to the one between Steve Austin and The Rock, as it was simply
Perfect. Everything, down to the last minute details.
Imagine the two biggest stars of the Attitude Era going at it. They're largely the reason why WWE is what it is today. So when asked on Instagram Live about how he felt about Stone Cold and the relationship he has with him, The Rock didn't hesitate in giving his full honest opinion on the rattlesnake. But what made the clip even more interesting, he would go on to explain how WWE management put the two together. So at the time, The Rock was part of the Nation of Domination and was the most over heel in the company, while Steve Austin was the #1 babyface. So when the two finally met in the ring on an episode of Raw, everyone in the arena, backstage, and watching at home knew that what they were seeing was pure electric.
The way we went, and it wound up working in my favor because I became quickly, very fortunately, the #1 bad guy in the WWE. After that promo, I walked by Steve Austin in the back, and he just looked at me and winked, and he went on and did his thing. So we were kept separate for a little while because he was the #1 babyface, the #1 draw in the wrestling company. So we come out live on Raw, and we're up at the top of the ramp, and I forgot what city we're in, but we come out as the Nation. We come out, and basically Stone Cold says, bring it, come on. I don't give a shit who you are, what color you are, one of you, all 4 of you, come on down to the ring and get some of this. Take off running down that ramp. In that moment, you start to hear the crowd and feel the crowd go, I hit the ring. The moment I hit the ring, I try and throw a punch, doesn't work. Bang, Steve kicks me in the stomach. He gives me his famous Stone Cold Stunner. Boom, lays me out. That's it. And they said, there's something special between you and Stone Cold Steve Austin. And I mean, I'd love to be in the ring with him, and I just thought, well, let me just keep putting in the work.
So that's not all. The Rock and Steve Austin faced each other 3 times on the grandest stage of them all. At WrestleMania 15 and 17, where Steve Austin won both the matches, while The Rock got a win back at WrestleMania 19. While their second match is considered to be the more memorable one, the third match was special, considering it was the last match for Steve's career. What's surprising about the whole thing is that only a handful of people knew that Steve was wrestling his last match, and The Rock was one of them. Knowing his greatest rival was retiring after the event, Rock got emotional after he pinned Steve in their final match, and revealed that he thanked Steve for everything that he did for him during his career.
We're both laying in the middle of the ring, and I sat up, and I remember I pushed the referee, Earl Hebner, away.
He knew that I was going. He knew that I didn't want to go, and this was a hard decision for me to make.
I lowered my head down to Steve's ear, and I said, I can't thank you enough for everything that you have done. And then I said, I love you.
I remember just laying there in front of 70,000, man. Say, man, I love you too.
That's what I'm talking about. This shit means something to me, man.
So while it was an emotional night for both men, Steve would end up having one more match against Kevin Owens at WrestleMania 38, which is an incredible feat, seeing as no one believed it would happen. Which is why the next story is simply insane considering the landscape of WWE back in 2017. That being said, we love seeing CM Punk back on our TV screens, but it's crazy to think that at one point his name wasn't even mentioned on WWE programming. But the influence that Punk's had on the pro wrestling industry was so profound that the fans couldn't shut up about chanting his name every week. Only a handful of individuals were allowed to take shots at the Second City Saint. All of this made up for a great moment when The Rock showed up on Raw in 2017. To keep things simple, The Rock was one of the producers on a movie called Fighting With My Family, which was based on Paige's WWE career. So The Rock was present on the February edition of Raw in 2017, and when the show went off air, he came out so he could record with his team some crowd reactions for the film. The scenes for which The Rock wanted to record the reactions of the crowd was when Paige debuted on the main roster and defeated AJ Lee to win the Divas title. And considering this is Punk's wife, this is where things took a wrong turn.
It's about to go down.
The crowd wasted no time in chanting for CM Punk, and The Rock had to take control of the situation. Not only did he mention the best in the world, he went the extra mile and even called CM Punk.
CM Punk! CM Punk! CM Punk!
time again.
He literally called me back. I swear to God, hold on a second. I'm going to call him.
Yes.
Let me see. I'm going to try and FaceTime him. Hold on.
Unfortunately for the fans in attendance, Punk didn't pick up the call, but while being interviewed by Inside the Rope, he said that he was unable to pick up because he was in an elevator and he had no phone reception.
I'm done with the walk and I finally figure out, okay, oh, Rock's calling me live from the Staples Center. I started texting him like immediately after that, and he got right back to me. He was like, oh, brother, I was like, I tried to answer, you know, I was outside, I was in an elevator. It just didn't work out.
The crowd would have gone berserk had Punk picked up, and it was later reported that Vince was mad at The Rock for even doing something like this. But considering his status, you can imagine that he knew he was going to get away with it. After all, he was the one rumored to fight Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania 30.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
Lesnar breaking the streak will remain as one of the most shocking moments in WWE history. And while he was a credible opponent for The Undertaker, nobody could have predicted him beating the streak. However, you'll be surprised to hear that Undertaker vs Brock Lesnar wasn't the original plan for WrestleMania 30. During a Q&A session on Twitter a few months before Mania, The Rock revealed that he was scheduled to have a program with Lesnar that would have led to a match between the two megastars at Mania 30. But the feud didn't happen as the Great One suffered injuries during his match against John Cena at WrestleMania 29. Had he wrestled Lesnar at Mania 30, the streak would have most likely been alive, and maybe Roman Reigns would have been the one to break Undertaker's streak, as it had to be conquered one day. Finally, it's safe to say that The Rock, despite being one of the most successful men on the planet, there was a time our beloved final boss was completely broke. He barely had any money when he began his wrestling career. So while talking to Oprah, The Rock shared an interesting story on her podcast about what he thought a successful man was in his eyes. The Rock talked about that he used to believe that every successful man had to own a Rolex watch.
Are you sure about that?
The Rock stated that he made a mistake by wearing his new Rolex on a segment on Raw, and during it, a brawl broke out and his Rolex was destroyed by The Big Show by mistake as he stepped on it. The final boss did not hesitate in saying that he almost cried when he got backstage and legitimately was heartbroken.
So when I was a kid, 14 years old, in my mind, what it meant to be successful, it was a Rolex watch. Every successful man has a Rolex watch. So I thought, this is it, I'm gonna splurge, and I went and I got myself a Rolex and wore it. At that time I was wrestling, I wore it in the ring, a melee broke out. One of the wrestlers fell on the Rolex when it came off. It broke, and you see me, oh my gosh, my Rolex. And I'm supposed to be in the moment and wrestling these other guys. Like you could see the tail. I'm trying to get my Rolex and somebody's like kicking me and they're trying to get it. So I finally get my Rolex back. I go backstage and I look at it. I'm heartbroken now. This is my thing. I remember immediately thinking, this is a sign.
It's safe to say with the money that he's making now, he could buy all the Rolexes in the world. So if you enjoyed the video guys, make sure to subscribe for more. And if there's any Rock stories that I might have missed, make sure to let me know in the comment section below.